Welcome to Brain Wellness, the podcast. I'm your host, Mandy NP. Each episode will bring you a new topic or interview related to brain health and wellness as part of my mission to help you on the path to a healthier, happier brain. So, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. My guest today is Mimi Hayes. Mimi is an American comedian, speaker, and author of I'll Be Okay, It's Just a Hole in My Head. Hayes wrote her first memoir while recovering from a brain injury at the age of 22. Her honest take on trauma and love followed her to the stage as a stand-up comedian, where she has performed on stages such as TEDx, Denver Comedy Works, Broadway Comedy Club, The Moth, Stand Up NY, Dangerfields, PDA Space, and the Upright Citizens Brigade. She is also open for Jim Gaffigan and Ari. Oh my gosh, I can never pronounce his last name. Eliarn?
Yarn. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And made her headlining debut at the Junkyard Hamilton. Her one-woman storytelling show, I'll Be Okay, and 20 Nothing have toured at the Edinburgh and Denver Fringe Festivals with rave reviews. Mimi's TED Talk, Laughter is Not the Best Medicine, has reached international audiences, and her unique collection of viral TikToks have garnered her millions of views. She has been featured by National Park Public Radio, the Kessler Foundation, the Aneurysm and AVM Foundation, Fox 31 Denver, Mogul, Hello Giggles, the San Francisco Giants, and more. I tried to do that in one breath and I couldn't. She is currently working on a documentary, her second book, and running her own business as a writing coach. Thank you so much for being here, Mimi.
I am, thank you for not shortening that. That was very nice of you. You certainly could have.
It was really impressive, and I thought, I'm just going to read this whole thing this time. Sometimes I do shorten it when people send me really long ones, but that was okay. And you and I met out in Washington, D.C. as we were being advocates and together for the National Brain Injury Conference, and I was so excited to meet you. So glad that we have connected because I now have a new TBI buddy. So, it's
hmm
always fun to do that. So I gave away a little bit of your backstory in your bio, but I always like my first question to kind of get a little bit more of the story of how you got to where you are today. How did you get to doing all the things that you've done and that we listed in that bio?
Mm. Yeah, well, if you would have read that bio to me 10 years ago, I'd be like, who is that person? I don't know that person. So started out as a teacher. Was going to be a high school teacher. I was 22. I was fresh out of college. Uh, wanted to help kids and do all that. Um, Quickly, my body was not a fan of this activity. I was only 5 days into my student teaching career when I had a brain hemorrhage on a blind date. I did not know that it was a brain hemorrhage. It just felt like a really, really bad migraine. And the migraine just lasted, 24 hours, maybe more than that. Went through a lot of misdiagnosis, lots of hospitals, ERs. I was told all kinds of things. You're just a millennial. You're 22. Have you been through a breakup lately? You're probably just tired. All these other symptoms started to overlay, some double vision, dizziness. I kind of felt like I was drunk, vertigo, um, really bad balance issues. Finally, I ended up in the ER, and my mom was with me, and she's like, "We're not going to leave until we figure out what's happened." They found the first bleed. That led to eventually a brain surgery. I was on bed rest for a month, maybe in some change. And in that month, I lost the ability to walk. I was seeing double full time. Speech was a little slurred, but I was still running my mouth the whole time. Kind of making light of my situation. I wasn't a writer and I wasn't a comedian. I did do improv in college, but I never would have thought I'd pursue those things. So all those things you said in my bio, those all came out of my brain injury and kind of coping with what was happening to me. So when I was in rehab after the brain bleed, after the surgery, I was writing a book because my friend told me to write a book. But she's like, "You got time on your hands, and I couldn't use my left hand, but I was, typing and trying to figure out what's going on in hospitals, doing intensive physical therapy, this kind of stuff, just trying to really understand what was happening to me. Um, and I got through it somehow, some way, and ended up back in the classroom, taught there for about 2 years, burnt out, moved to New York City, as one does when they're burnt out. Uh, So yeah, a lot of stuff just really like came out of the brain injury and feeling like a bit more creative. Also, I never thought I'd make a documentary, but when I was in the hospital, I was taking a lot of footage of myself, almost like I was like a specimen, in a test tube. And I'm like, oh, look at how I can't walk, and look at how I, need all this extra sleep and all these different things. I was so kind of fascinated by what had happened to my body and my brain. So now some of that archival footage is being put together with my documentary. So yeah, that's a long spiel. I will allow you to ask follow-up questions should you so desire.
I do desire. Where did the comedy part come in?
Uh, It was really kind of my gut reaction when I was really scared and couldn't admit to myself that I might die. And so I just kept making all these really dark jokes during the diagnosis and the bed rest and the brain, like it was just this like honest to God gut reaction. The first thing I said when I woke up from brain surgery was, "Am I dead?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Are you dead?"
Mhm.
And she said no. And I was like, okay, I just had to ask. So it wasn't even something I like knew I was doing. It was just kind of this dark humor to cope with stuff, which eventually led me to get kind of curious and see if I could do that kind of stuff on stage, which I did.
Yeah, and watching your social media since we become friends at the conference as well, it fits you. You are like a natural at it. I have to sometimes think before I say things. Every once in a while, I can come back with a witty comeback, but not.
Oh, I don't think.
Yeah.
Just go. Sometimes that gets me into trouble though.
Yeah. So I always say one thing that happened with my accident is that my filter got broken. Do you ever feel like that where you just don't have a filter anymore?
Yes. Yes, and especially at the onset, it was really bad. I'm like, did I just say that? And I would look at the people in the room and I'm like, oh, they're not going to say anything, but I said that, right? Absolutely, absolutely. I had a filter issue. Yeah.
Has it been fixed or no? Because I still feel like my filter doesn't
No,
exist. Yeah, no.
I still struggle with it. Sometimes, yeah, it'll come out. I yelled at a man the other day. I don't know if you saw that on my social media.
I missed that one.
He was trying to cut us in line, and I rolled down the window. I said, "Excuse me, no, we didn't let you in. We let her in." I said, "It's International Women's Month. It's Women's History Month, sir. Sit down." And my friends in the car were like mortified. They're like, "Are you really yelling at this man and telling him it's Women's History
Yeah.
Month?"
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. It's a thing.
yes,
It
I did.
happens. It happens.
Yeah.
So you called your TEDx laughter is not the best medicine, but where'd that title come from? Because you do a lot of humor.
I do. So that TED really is me understanding that the humor was a coping strategy, but it
Mhm.
did not take away the trauma.
Gotcha.
So that was my instinct. I was making fun of all these things, but um, down the road, years later, I would catch myself, understanding that I hadn't healed from this back here. And so it's kind of this funnel. It's this way that you can survive. And I'm not the only one who does it. I talked about Viktor Frankl and, during the Holocaust and a lot of like emergency, uh, EMTs and stuff will do this kind of gallows humor thing. You can do that, that's all good and fine, but you still have to like face the dark thing, the scary thing that you were avoiding back there with your jokey jokes. So that's kind of what it's about. And a lot of it's just me like, hey, like go to therapy, like find your people, like you, me, we are each other's people now. Um, and so that's kind of the main like point of it. But yes, it's a little silly because I do joke a lot, but I have to understand too that there's something underneath the jokes that I'm not okay with that I
Yeah.
have to kind of face.
Yeah. There is a lot of trauma that goes along with a brain injury. And just like the brain injury itself is an invisible disability, the trauma is definitely invisible too, especially when we do joke about it more. What was your, like, the biggest thing that helped you actually heal from some of that trauma?
Um, therapy, therapy and my community.
Mm.
Feeling like I wasn't alone, that I wasn't crazy. The first time I saw someone like me represented on film was My Beautiful Broken Brain, which is a documentary on Netflix. And this woman had this stroke. She was a filmmaker, had her life derailed, but at the end of it, she looks totally normal, right? And she's really telling my story too. That story of like, I went through all this stuff back here and now I'm on the other end of it. And I may look okay. We talked about this a lot, right? Like, I may look fine, but I'm anything but fine. And so finding those people that are telling those stories, being vulnerable. You had a great post the other day. I'm the face of brain injury. This is the many different states you may find me in. That kind of stuff really makes me feel connected and less alone in that experience.
Yeah, I think I've become closer friends with some people that I knew before the accident. We were acquaintances or maybe friends, but now we've much become much closer because we've been through shared experiences. And I think we understand each other like other people don't understand us. So it's definitely good to have that village.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I read books by people that had been through similar things before my injury. I think My Stroke of Insight was probably one of the biggest ones that I ever read. The neuroscientist that had a brain bleed, because she would just documented it so well of what happened. And I would read these and it was fascinating and I was learning about it, but it never really hit home until I had my own injury. And then when I wrote my book then too about my first year of recovery, it was a whole new eye-opening thing too of it was a good I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. It was good therapy for me because I was able to then go back and read what happened that first year because I don't remember it.
Hmm.
Um, so when you got done writing your book, did you feel that way?
I did. Yeah, I really did. I will say it kind of took a couple extra steps of like it being published and out in the
Yeah.
world before
Yeah.
I really felt like I could not close that chapter, but that I had kind of healed in a way by telling that story. And I'll share this with you. This is when it really like hit home, and this is the same kind of like laughter is not the best medicine. It hits you years later. The book had come out. It was, maybe a month after it came out. I was reading my own book on the subway when I was living in New York City, and I was like, "Ooh, look! I got my book! Like, look, that's me." And so I'm reading it, and I get to this particularly, honest part about being really grateful because I could be blind. I could be, still unable to walk. I could be X, I could be Y. And I just started weeping on the subway, which is a thing that many of us do. It's a rite of passage in New York, but I just started crying and I called my mom and I was just like, I can see. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it was close. It was a close call. I mean, like, I'm very, very lucky that I was able to recover the way that I did and that the bleed was in this spot and not in this spot. And like that the surgery went well and wasn't, problematic. Like, there's just so many things you don't really feel or understand until you kind of work through them in that way. So yes, like very cathartic process. And then I like finished it and then I like put it on the shelf and I was like, ah, like that felt really good to do that, to do all that work, read it in its kind of completed form and put it on the shelf.
Hmm. Hmm. And then the documentary. I want to talk a little bit more
Yes.
about that because that's how we really kind of bonded at the conference, was being in that interview seat for your documentary. So
Hmm.
where do you see this going? Because I know it's grown since you first had the first thought of it. But so where do you see this growing, developing? What more are you going to do with it?
Yes. So again, another thing I never thought I'd do. It wasn't until I had a second bleed in 2023 when I called up my LA friends. One is a cinematographer, one is an editor. And I said, hey, we kind of talked about my story and maybe it's a TV show, maybe it's a documentary. I lived in LA for a year. I was trying to sell a TV pilot about my story. And I go, I've had a second bleed now, so I think we should do the documentary. I think now is the time to really capture this happening a second time. So again, that kind of fascination with like what's happening. And same spot, smaller the second time, um, but same spot. So it's having all the same symptoms. So I started doing my own filming, and then I got my crew. We did 3 shoots in 2023. We did Denver, we did LA, we did New York. And so we got all this footage, kind of trying to tell my story. And then we've been working on it, trying to see what the story is within all the footage. It's a very long process. So then this opportunity came up to go to this conference, and I said, "This is the missing piece of the documentary because my story is fine, but it's empowering, it's crazy, it's all these things, but it's not just me. Like there's a bigger picture." And I wanted to meet all of these wonderful people, and what an amazing experience that was. I was so lucky to capture those interviews with you, with all those folks. I mean, y'all made me laugh and cry and said things that were on my heart too, and that was kind of the whole thing that I wanted to get in DC. So, where we are right now, we're kind of, I won't say backtracking, but like taking a new approach. I think now I see it maybe as a docu-series with several episodes versus like a feature-length documentary. So I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot of footage to look at right now. And yeah, it'll be a really interesting project. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to who we get it in the hands of, if we can get it distributed on one of those fancy streaming sites and such.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know that I have pull any weight, but let me know if there's any way that I can help with that because I'm
Yeah.
super excited to see the final version of it. Just our group as we were in there, I mean, we connected with Dee Dee, who's now a good friend as well. And I love the fact that we all connected so well, but just hearing everybody's stories, it was so um exciting, heartening and disheartening all at the same time because people are at different levels of recovery. And
Hmm.
one thing that I've kind of struggled with since coming back from that conference is seeing all the people that have been in these shoes much longer than I have. And I feel like I've gotten better faster than some of them. And it almost kind of made me feel a little guilty, kind of like almost like a survivor's guilt. Not that you
Yeah.
passed away, but the fact that I've had different opportunities and have gotten better at different rates. And it was hard to watch some of the people that were in the shoes that I was 2 years ago,
Hmm.
and they're still there after their
Hmm.
injury.
Yeah, I also have felt that survivor's guilt absolutely, because I am passing, right, as a normie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I feel guilt and shame anytime I try to use any disability service whatsoever.
Mhm.
I went to the Bernie AOC rally in Denver the other day, and we just happened to stumble into the ADA seating, because it was just packed with people, just thousands and thousands of people. We bumped into this spot, and they're like, "Hey, you can't go any further. This is the d disability seating area." And I kind of look at my friend, and I look back at him, and I'm like, "Well, I have a disability." And he just looked at me like I was just such a liar.
Mhm.
know? Um, and I said, no, really, I do. I've had 2 brain bleeds. You can check the, scar in the back of my head from my brain surgery. If you want to do a neuro test, you might see my eyes look funky. I just started like telling him the story, and he's like, okay, but he looked annoyed,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, I hate this.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
just the shame of just like, well, 10 years ago, I would have been in a wheelchair. I wouldn't have even gone, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. That would have been way too much. As it was too much. But at the onset of the first bleed, and I would say the second bleed, really overwhelmed the crowded spaces, too much stimuli, too many people. No way, no way would I have even been there. So I totally get that, and I just think we should keep having that conversation about what disability can look like so
Mhm.
that we don't feel such shame in using these things that we actually need to use.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had dinner with a good friend the other night that I haven't seen in a long time, but she was commenting on how great I look. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And she thought I was back to work full time. And I said, no, very, very part-time still right now. And going through some of the things that I still deal with, it was very I think very eye-opening for her too, because she didn't realize that I was still having so many issues. Like I transpose letters and numbers all the time, so I feel very dyslexic when I read. I still have not picked up a book, and that reading was one of my favorite things to do before my injury. I read like a madwoman. If it wasn't fun reading, it was reading to learn something, and I can't do that capacity yet. And then seeing objects of certain colors, they are absent in my peripheral vision. So I will run
Mm,
into things. I'll be surprised by things in my peripheral vision. And she just looked at me and she's like, oh, like, so people don't realize that we still have issues even though we look okay.
mhm.
Do you get into that at all in your comedy or any times that you're on the stage when you try to educate people within that comedy realm?
Yeah, I mean, I will always go for my brain humor
Mhm.
over other sets. And I had to really like learn how to do that because people are very afraid of talking about death and they get very uncomfortable and disability. With death and disability, they're like, "Ugh." And so I had to like really learn how to approach the subject. But people find me more endearing now when I do stand up than when I was trying to be perfect and not have a brain injury on stage and heavily rehearse my stuff and not make a single mistake. And I just started to feel like that wasn't authentic, that wasn't me. Now you'll see me tripping over the cord, breaking the microphone, getting distracted because someone's talking in the corner, and I will just acknowledge all of it and just be myself. I don't know if that answered the question, but
I mean, it kind of does. Um, my first presentation I gave was last year, so a little over a year after my accident, and I I struggled with whether or not I felt comfortable getting on the stage. And I've given presentations for years. I was a teacher also in nursing school, and I've done lots of stuff in front of people. And that first speech on stage was something totally different because I was worried about if I was going to stumble over my words, if I was going to lose track of where I was in my presentation. And I finally got to the point where I was okay with it because I was in a room full of brain injured people. Like, you know what, if
Mm,
there's any place to stumble over my words, this is going to be it. And I cried tears of both joy and frustration that day in my presentation because I did lose my spot a couple times. I struggled to find my words a couple times, but they cheered me on as I was doing.
mm,
And
mhm,
I think that was a great way to get back into doing kind of any kind of public speaking because it reminded me that I don't have to worry about it and I don't have to be perfect. I've stopped, like we were before we started, before I hit record today, I was talking about how I don't do a lot of editing out. I used to try to edit out the breaks where I would lose track of my words, and I don't do it
mhm.
anymore. I leave it because I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to let people know that I still have those struggles, and if they hear it on the air when they're listening to the show, then they realize that I'm not back to 100% yet.
And that's not even, I mean, yeah, I wish that that wasn't the kind of societal pressure, like getting back to 100%, right? Like you said you're 2 years out.
Hmm.
Okay, that's crazy. Like that's
Hmm.
such a short amount of time. And I don't know if you feel this way, but it's like I'm personally never going to be back to that version of myself that I was. And sometimes I mourn that. Sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I could remember where I put my phone and not hide it from myself. I hide things from myself now. That's a funny thing. But like I'm never gonna be that person again. And sometimes people wish I was, sometimes I wish I was. But there's also this new opportunity for this like other version of ourselves. Like you've talked about this too,
Yeah.
like 2.0. And I love that new me so much more than this other version of me that is now, I would say she's dead now, RIP. But this new version of myself is so much more confident, takes risks, and doesn't care what people think, and will just be silly. And like, yeah, I just kind of felt like I had a rebirth. I mean, would you say that you had that as well?
Yeah. Yep. It took me a long time to get to that point. I was I was stuck in that mode of I want to be back to where I was for so long. And I just wanted my old self back. And still in some ways I wish I could have parts of that old self back. But again, I don't think I ever want to get to that point. And it finally dawned on me when I realized that I was working a full-time job and a part-time job, and I had the podcast, and I was exercising all the time, and I've got three kids still living at home. Like, I have all of these things, and I was doing all of them and hardly ever sleeping. I was running myself ragged and was priding myself on it. So I'm like,
Mm,
I don't need to do that. I don't need to go back to that. I like that I can sleep now. I turn on my sleep notifications on my phone and I don't look at my phone. It doesn't ring for me at night. So I like that I can use those filters now. And I put a filter on my phone when I'm in the car. So as soon as it plugs into my CarPlay, it goes into driving mode. So I'm not distracted. Like, you know
hmm
what? I kind of like that. I don't feel like I have to be attentive to everything all the time. And if I'm tired, I can just say, hey, I'm tired. And I don't have to feel pressured that I have to keep doing things. So
hmm
it is very freeing in some ways, but it took me a long time to get there.
Yeah. And I have heard that like the 2 year mark is also maybe, I don't know, maybe you could talk about this kind of feeling, but the 2 year mark I've heard for brain injuries, a lot of survivors will feel kind of like a couple steps back again.
Mm.
But it's natural because like the brain is making those connections again. I don't know if you felt like any like, oh my gosh, am I taking a step back or like what's going on there?
So, funny thing there, last summer when we were on vacation, I accidentally bumped my head on our camper
Mm,
awning because I don't see certain colors in my periphery, right? I missed the awning completely and smacked my head, and I already took a few steps back because my speech was affected again, my headaches came back, my memory was affected again, and so I was working with my therapist to backtrack on all, try to get back all the things that I had already gained back, but now I had to gain them back again. So there was that. Um, and next month it'll be actually the 2 year mark. So we'll see how I feel on the day. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have an emotional day because I'm still not back to full-time work. It's my
hmm
work is different than it was before, but I'm still not back to full-time. So I'm still not supporting my family like I was. And I still have those feelings of self-doubt that creep up because of that. And being a nurse practitioner in neurology, I'm like, I should know all of the things to make myself better. And yet I don't because my brain got scrambled. So,
hmm
it's coming to those realizations that I don't have all the answers. And even though I feel like I should, at a couple different presentations that I've given, I talk about how I'm shoulding all over myself. Mm,
Mm,
because I feel like I should do this and I should do that. And then I have to realize that I can't because my brain just doesn't function the same. And that's okay. It's just learning new skills.
right. And being honest about when you are having a bad day. That's been hard for me because I was always go, 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 go. I still am go, 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 go. And so even just being honest about like, hey, I'm having a bad brain day and I need to pump the damn brakes.
Yeah.
Like I really, really do. Slam on the brakes. Like don't just no, no, you need to stop what you're doing. But I still struggle with that because I want to do everything. I want to try everything. I want to go everywhere, you know? So trying to be honest about those limitations now for sure is difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. What have been like a couple of your biggest lessons that you've learned?
Hmm. Um, it's okay to be vulnerable and like stop masking. Like I've convinced I'm Oscar worthy. I am such a good actress. People think I am like the most okay ever. And while I feel like that's kind of maintains the status quo, it doesn't really serve me or anyone that loves me, right? If I'm not being vulnerable and honest about what I'm struggling about. So being vulnerable, saying like, hey, I'm not okay. This is what I'm struggling with right now. Getting help, going to therapy. There was still a bit of stigma for me about going to therapy, right? Like I had gone to physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, but going to therapy for my mental health, that was I put that off for a very long time. And so I'm still digging through a lot of things that I kind of didn't want to dig through earlier on in therapy. Um, just learning that I wasn't alone, at the very start of this journey. Like I knew one person that had a brain surgery and she was out in Minnesota and she was very sweet. She'd send me like care packages and she'd say, call me, ask me anything. So that was great. But in my immediate circle, like all my friends at that age were getting married, going to grad school, starting to have kids already, and so my life just looked so different. And I had to really let go of that comparison. Like, your life is not any better or worse than mine. I have different struggles than you do. And I need to make my own path, and not try so hard to fit into this box. Like I'm so far outside of that societal box of where I should be, right? Shooting on myself. Like,
Yep.
no, I'm nowhere near that life, and I actually like it better that way. But if you would talk to my younger self, I'd be like, I'm not married? What? What do you mean? Like, I would have been really, really focused on having some of those kind of traditional things in my life that I don't currently.
Yeah. Yeah. And that whole comparison part is really easy to fall into that trap. Uh,
Mm.
I I have done it my whole recovery, trying to compare myself to how other people have gotten better. And having been a practitioner before the accident, I saw people at all levels of their injury. I saw people that got better within days. I saw people that got better weeks to months, years. And then I saw people that never got better. And the longer time went on for me, the more I got to thinking that I was going to be in that latter part. And that was a really big struggle. But thankfully, early on, I did seek that mental health need because I had some really dark days. And there were some days that because I was not getting back to work and I felt like a huge burden on my family, there were times that I felt like I wish that accident would have ended differently. And that's when I
Mhm.
realized, oh, I am down in this place that I can't get myself out of. So if ever there's a word of advice to anybody out there, don't let yourself get down there and don't and not ask for help. Because I didn't feel like I could ask my family for help at that point. I was asking them for so much already to help just life move forward. But getting that help from somebody outside the family, yes, your insurance needs to pay for it or you need to pay for it, whatever, but it's worth it because
Mhm.
then you come out of it so much stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's hard. That's a hard times. I've definitely had those dark times myself, and just you're not a burden. Like that's what's so crazy is we are so convinced that we are.
Mhm.
And no, they've already done so much for me, or they're gonna freak out. Sometimes when I'm very honest about how I'm feeling and I'll write about it and put it on the internet, my mom will, oh, freak out. I'm like, I'm okay. I'm not okay, but I'm gonna be honest about it because the more honest you are, the more other people see that and they go, "Oh, okay, it's okay to not be okay."
Yeah.
And talk about it. And you might be surprised at who's going to reach out to you and support you or help you in a way that you hadn't expected because you're like, I am not okay. And I will always make time for friends when they say they're not okay, or I will try to read and understand and know them well enough to know they're not okay
Mhm.
and kind of bully them into picking up the phone.
Yeah, yeah, there is that. It's good to have a couple really good people that you can reach out to at any time. I have a very small, very close-knit group that I have them. I say close-knit, they're close-knit to me. They don't all know each other, but they're all very
Ah.
to me. So
Mm,
if I can't reach one of them, I know that in that group, one of them will be able to answer and talk when I need to talk. So it's not there are some things I don't blast out for everybody, but there is a lot now that I'm so much more open. I used to live Facebook happy, and I would
mm,
only post the things that were good things in life, right? Because I didn't nobody wants to focus on the negative. But as I've posted those negative days, those hard days, I have people comment on it all the time. Thank you for sharing that. I needed to hear that I'm not alone today.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really powerful, especially when I don't know if you felt this way when you put your book out, but I was I was really convinced that the community would come for me in a
Yeah.
negative way, because I'm not disabled enough, or I'm not brain injured enough, or look at her, she's a comedian now. What is she talking about? All this stuff. It's been the complete opposite, where people will reach out to me, still years after the book, that first one came out, and just, thank you. I felt so alone, and then I found this, and your story is the same as mine, or just parts of it, feeling just called to different parts of it, totally different brain injuries, totally different circumstances and different backgrounds and people. But I couldn't have been more wrong. I was feeling like, oh, I don't know, they're gonna come for me. But no, I mean, I think it's really powerful when you share your story and then people go, oh, it's not just me.
Yeah. I think the more that all of us share, the more it becomes real for other people and normal. It's not, I mean, we're not neurotypical anymore. I would say that now. My youngest child has autism, and I'm more like him now than I ever was, because there are days that I'm very rigid and I need my structure, and there are days that I don't understand sarcasm, because of how my brain functions now. So it's identifying that neuroatypical is now common, and it
Hmm.
happens, and it's normal for it to happen after an injury, and it's okay to talk about, because we're here and we are the face of brain injury, right?
Hmm.
Hmm.
What's something that let's hear something you think is funny about either your brain injury or brain injuries in general. What's something that, like, makes you chuckle about it?
Oh, I think, oh gosh, funny, sarcastic funny, or funny, actually funny.
Oh,
Because
however you interpret funny.
I find a lot of sarcasm in things. I didn't used to find sarcasm quite as much as I do now, but and funny things, I don't understand sarcasm as much now. So people will try to make jokes, and I can't find them as funny as they used to. But actually, we went to a comedy show on Friday night, and I laughed so hard. Like when I find something funny, I laugh incredibly hard at it now. I have this awkward laugh that, years ago, one of my friends named it Elroy because it sounds like this weird man coming out of my throat. Um, and it used to come out occasionally, but like whenever I have an emotion, I am 100% in now. So Elroy has come out so much since my accident, because when things are funny, they're incredibly funny. So it's just I think that's humorous to me, and it makes my whole family laugh. So whenever it comes out, everybody's like, "Oh, here comes Elroy again." And once I get going, I can't stop. So I have this my weird laugh just keeps going. So if you've heard Elroy, anybody that's listening, you know what I'm talking about. If not, that maybe you'll get an opportunity at some point. But that I think has been my most humorous thing, because I never I always thought things were funny, but I never laughed as hard as I do now. So when it's funny, it's incredibly funny.
Love that. I love that so much. It's like you access this like funny bone.
Yes. Yeah, so yeah, when we left the comedy show on Friday, my abs were so sore. Same as the last one we went to as well. My abs were so sore. I could not stop like laughing and hurting all at the same time. But it's good because you need that release. And like I said, I don't think find things as funny as I used to, but when I do find them funny, oh man, they're good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know who to bring to my next comedy show then.
Heck yeah. I will
I'll
laugh
fly you
right
out.
there. Heck yeah. So one other question I was thinking of as I was like stalking you on all the other social medias after we connected, on I think it's your TikTok, call yourself a professional brain bleeder. How do you
Hmm.
really feel about calling yourself that?
That is a great question. You know, I think I'm just good at having bleeds. Um, but yeah, there is definitely there's some big stuff to unpack there, right? Because I am insecure about my career. Like I am insecure about like where I am as a comedian, as an author, as a speaker. I had this ongoing pressure I put on myself to be all these things, a bestseller, viral, all these things on SNL, like all these different goals I have, which I don't think are completely out of reach,
Mhm,
but I always feel like I'm not there yet.
mhm.
So calling myself a professional brain bleeder is like, if I can't do anything else, at least I can leak. At
Yeah.
least my brain can leak. Like, man, I got you covered in that arena.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a really good question. That was a really good question. No one's ever asked me that before. Yeah.
That one just struck me. I'm like, like that whole thing you just described is imposter syndrome. And
Hmm.
I suffered from that before my injury, but man, is that like on overdrive now too. Even as I've gotten back into doing the things that I love with even with the podcast. I'm like, am I good enough to get all the listeners that I want to get? Everybody that listens to the show says it's great, but I would love to have more people listen. And so I get the big goals, and I love that you did a TEDx because the TED Talk is on my list of goals that I want to do at some point too. So
Yes. Yes.
then there's that
Super
whole thing that do I qualify? Am I really good enough to get there?
100%. It took me 3 times. I was rejected 3 times before I got that. And it got real close. I was always at the last person cut, right?
Mm.
So I was thinking that same thing. I'm like, maybe it's not meant to be, but I just kept going. I will say I've never been more nervous than when I did my TED. You can physically tell I'm like, but no, it's a great experience. And everyone's really, I won't say everyone's capable of doing a TED Talk, but like you certainly are qualified. And what they're really looking for is a it's not a story worth telling. Idea. It's an idea worth sharing, right? That's their whole thing. So it's really like the idea. Now it can be tied to like a personal journey and a story and data and all these things, but they're looking for like the idea, is kind of their main thing. So, hey, if you want some coaching in that area, you let me know. I have a lot of people that are trying to get TED Talks right now in my client list, and I enjoy working with those people.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the next great question then. So your client list, what is it you're doing? Do you have projects, stories, anything you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I'm coming up on 2 years as a CEO of my own business, writing with Mimi. So I started it, to be honest with you, because I couldn't find a job. This is what I do. I get creative, right? Because I don't fit in that 9 to 5 box. And so I was like, well, I've been coaching writing for a long time in with other companies, with other groups, taking on people who want to do what I've done. I got that a lot when I put the first book out. People were like, can I take you to coffee and ask you a million questions for 4 hours? And I'm like, I can actually get paid to do this work. So I became a book coach and opened this business that has actually attracted a lot of brain injured, and chronically ill folks because that's the work that I do. But I get a lot of, memoir, I'll get some screenplay, I'll get some comedians, poets, short stories. Hey, I want to do a TED Talk. Hey, I need to write this important email, and I think I sound crazy. So I'll get all kinds of writing. And so I'm really trying to just build a community of people that like want to write, because if you write, you are a writer.
Mhm.
It took me a long time to understand that, because again, imposter syndrome. But especially for those new writers and new people who aren't sure what they're doing. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing either. So sometimes that can be really intimidating to even get started. And so I'm trying to build a community for those folks as well. Just like, hey, we're all in it together. We're going to figure it out together. And so I get kind of clients from all across the spectrum, from brand spanking new, I just have an idea, I don't know how to get it on paper, to, hey, my memoir just needs a pass. Just give me some feedback on it, and everything in between. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. How
Yeah.
how can people find you if they want to learn more about that or any other things that you do?
Oh, you can stalk me on the socials. I'm all over the place. Mimi Hayes Brain and Writing with Mimi. My TikTok, ugh, chef's kiss, you know what I'm saying? No, just good stuff. I will be putting out more things in terms of the documentary when I'm getting through that. My second book is gonna be out at some point. I'm just looking for an agent. So if you happen to know any agents who are looking for a professional brain bleeder in my second memoir, hit a girl up. But yeah, I will be continuing to blast out my nonsense to the masses for the foreseeable future. So,
Nice, nice. And I will include all of those links in the show notes too, so people can find you easily. I think we could chat probably all day, but for time's sake, we should probably wrap up, I guess. Before we do that, any last words of wisdom that you would like to share with the listeners today?
ah, wisdom, 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 wisdom,
Or humor, whatever.
humor. I just want to say, you're farther along than you think you are. And I think if a past version of you would look at you today, they would be really proud of you. That's what I'm going to say today.
Mhm. Awesome. I love it. Great words. Great words. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mimi.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this with others to help me continue on with my mission to help people live healthier, happier lives. Go to www.brainwellnesssolutions.com to see what I'm up to and get links to all the social medias there. See you next time.